The January transfer window is about to open, and we are going to be looking at USMNT players who need a move this January. Specifically, we're going to be looking at them through the lens of three different categories. 1, must go. 2, should go. 3, would be nice to go. What up, guys? I'm Pete Douthit, host of the 11 Yanks Show. Welcome. Smash that like button if you're already a subscriber. If you're not a subscriber, smash that subscribe button. We cover everything in the American soccer landscape. Well, in the men's soccer landscape, to be more specific. But yes, don't forget to also smash that notification button so you get a notification when I put out a new video. So, guys, the January transfer window is here. And of course, we are looking at a lot of transfers. The vast majority of the transfer rumors that will be put out there and propagated are fake, usually drummed up by agents or media with nothing to do. For example, Anthony Robinson to Liverpool is already being bandied about. Guys, I would be very, very surprised if that happens. They already have, 2 left backs. Andy Robertson is coming back from injury. On top of it, Anthony Robinson is just not a Liverpool-level player. He should stay at Fulham, continue to play in the Premier League, continue to be a good quality player. But, I think that's, mid-table Premier League club is about his ceiling. So, yeah, most of these transfer rumors are fake. And over time, you have to kind of discern which ones are real and which ones are not. Generally, reputable outlets, have, generally a higher chance of putting out a good transfer or a good rumor or a good report, rather, than just transfer rumors, which are a dime a dozen. But specifically, let's look at the guys that need to go in the different categories. The first one I have is Gio Reyna. Okay, that is the first must go. It's been a rough time for Gio this year at Dortmund since he came back from injury. He's only gotten 2 starts. Ironically, performed very, very well in both of those starts. Mostly gets, 10 to 20 minutes off the bench at most. And most of the time actually plays really well. Last game, he came on and created 3 more chances. In the Champions League game against Paris, Saint-Germain came on and created a chance. Royce couldn't finish. So it's not that he's not playing well. It's just that for whatever reason, Terzic doesn't rate him. Now, Terzic has no idea what he's doing. He's in over his head completely, okay? 15 points off the top of the Bundesliga, 6 points out of the top 4. This is not the place that Dortmund needs to be in. And Terzic has no idea how to use the team that he has. Now, yes, he's bringing in Sven Bender and Nuri Sahin as assistants. Personally, I don't think that's going to change anything. I think Terzic doesn't rate Gio, and so there's no point in Gio Reyna continuing to be there. Now, Gio should go on loan for 6 months. Not this summer, but next summer is when his contract expires. So he needs to go on loan for 6 months. See what happens with Terzic. I think there's a very good chance Terzic will be fired, maybe in January itself, because he has no idea what he's doing. He's a completely clueless coach here. And, I just don't think he rates Gio, and I think it's time for Gio to go. Where does he go? Well, these are the options. There are plenty of options, but this is just speculation, where I think could be a good move for him. The first one is Milan. Pete, there's too many Americans at Milan. Pete, you're just saying that because Pulisic and Musa are at Milan. Pete, remember what happened at Leeds? Okay, number one, there's no such thing as too many Americans anywhere. Okay, there's players who can contribute and be valuable, and it can be a mutually beneficial relationship to the club, regardless of where they're from. People got a little bit of PTSD because of the whole Leeds situation, but let's be honest, they didn't sign the best players there. They didn't really fit in with the Leeds style. Certainly, Brenden Aaronson did. He's just not a very good player. Tyler Adams was actually good for them. Weston McKennie, that was a rough 6 months. But look at what's happening at PSV. They brought in Americans that fit the club, that have opportunities at the club, and that can contribute to the club at the level that the club is at. Gio Reyna can absolutely contribute to Milan. Milan have a problem right now. They're not out of the top 4, but if they keep up the form they've been in for the last 2 months, they could potentially slip out of the top 4, right? And they really don't have any creative attacking midfielders because Reinders, Musa, Loftus-Cheek, Krunic, all of those guys, Pobega's injured, but those 3 or 4 are either 6s or box-to-box midfielders. Then you have Adli, who's coming back. Now, Adli is a 10. He's a creative attacking midfielder, but he's just coming back from injury. I personally don't think he's necessarily better than Gio Reyna. And I know the comments are going to blow up. People don't agree with me there. I actually believe that Gio Reyna could be a huge contributor to Milan. especially because Milan play very much down the wings. Whenever they attack, it's either long to Giroud, who then tries to flick it on for Pulisic or for, what's his name? Leao, or they go straight down the wings with it. They need variance and diversity to their attack, and having a 10, a creative attacking midfielder, can certainly help. Now, they need center backs too, because their defense has been terrible, and now it looks like Tomori's injured. But I think that his 6-month loan wouldn't cost Milan anything, except obviously his salary. But I think he could be a huge addition to Milan. Particularly, the Italian style of play is very tactical. And it's not that slow, but it's a little bit slower, which kind of suits Giovanni Reyna's style in the first place. I think Giovanni Reyna pulling strings in midfield, releasing guys like Giroud and Pulisic and Leao in behind with his through balls would be a really, really good thing. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's where I would like him to go. The other one potentially is Real Sociedad. And, oh, by the way, on Milan, they have to get in the top. They have to stay in the top 4. The title challenge is over. They have to stay in the top 4, but they also have Europa League, which they should be challenging for. A club of Milan's stature should be challenging for Europa League. Now, Real Sociedad, so my point is that they need depth and they need options, particularly given their injury woes at the moment. Now, Real Sociedad have issues as well. They are trying to get back in that top 4. They're currently 6th in La Liga, I think 4 points off Barcelona, who are in 4th. But they are still in the Champions League as well. So for Sociedad, they need reinforcements. Their Russian midfielder, the number 10 that they brought in the summer, is injured again. They've got 2 other left wingers who are injured as well. They play this interesting sort of 4-1-4-1 style where Gio could play as either one of the 2 attacking midfielders behind the striker or potentially as one of the wingers as well. And I think Spain would be a good spot for Giovanni Reyna. So one of those 2. Do I think he's going to go? I guess we don't know. He fired Wasserman, so that's we don't know how that impacts, his move. Could be Wasserman was not good at finding him a good loan. I don't know. I think his dad is representing him now, Claudio. Claudio was spotted at the Dortmund offices, so perhaps they're negotiating what's going to happen to Gio in January. I am of the opinion that unless Terzic has a massive change of heart and starts playing him, there's no point in staying there for 6 more months. Because if they don't play him, guess what? He has 1 year on his contract in the summer, and then it's time to let Giovanni go permanently. They could still salvage it, or even if they want to let Gio go permanently, they'll get a heck of a lot more for him by loaning him out to a team that will actually play him, and his value will go up in the summer if they want to sell him, right? If they want to get rid of him. But we'll see what happens. The next must-go is Ethan Horvath. God bless Ethan Horvath. He's been in Europe for a long time, guys. He's currently number 3 at Nottingham Forest behind Vlachodimos and Matt Turner. He went to Moda in Norway, and then he was in Belgium, and then he came to England with Nottingham Forest. Wasn't able to get a starting spot there. Went down to Luton, helped Luton get up. He's really tried at multiple different levels, and he's had, mixed bags, some success, some not, not great. I think it's time for Horvath, who's 28, sorry I didn't write it there, to come back home, to come back to the U.S. and be a regular starting keeper. There are lots of teams in MLS that have terrible keepers because of the roster restrictions. Teams don't typically spend money on a good keeper. And I think Horvath would be an upgrade on at least half the league, if not more. Where could he go? 2 options. One is the LA Galaxy. Jonathan Bond was very shaky last season, and anybody who's ever seen Jonathan Klinsmann play knows that he ain't it. So that's a potential option to go to LA Galaxy. I think he'd be a good addition there, and they need to get back into the playoffs and become a big club again. They fancy themselves a big club, but they haven't been for the last few seasons. Actually, they haven't been really for a long time, let's be honest. So they need to get back up there, and it's on Ethan Horvath now to see if he can get, a loan. I mean, look, his contract expires next summer as well. Not this coming summer, 2024, but 2025. So potentially they could, you could pay a pittance for Ethan Horvath, or they could loan him out for 6 months, and then if the LA Galaxy are happy, in the summer they pay a transfer fee for him. It's only 1 year left on his contract. It shouldn't be too much. The alternative option is Colorado Rapids. They've got William Yarbrough there, who hasn't been very good. They brought in another Serbian keeper, Ilic, I believe, who's been fine but not great. I think that Ethan would be a upgrade on both of them. And the added plus is that Ethan is from Colorado. So that would be kind of an interesting, coming home for him. The other option, I guess, would be could he get a loan to a championship team? I'll be honest, I don't watch enough of the championship guys to know, like, is there a championship team that needs to replace their goalkeeper? Because there's no point in going if he's going to sit on the bench. Might as well just go somewhere where you can start, where you're going to be a locked-in starter, or at least the preferred starter. If there is a championship team that needs a new keeper, great. I'm happy for him to get the loan there. But at this point, I'm kind of the move that Horvath just needs to come back to MLS. Like, it's been 10 years abroad. He's really done his best. He's tried. He just is not an elite keeper. And that's okay. He can still be a very good keeper, just not elite. And I think he needs to be playing regularly at this point in his career, particularly for his confidence. Brenden Aaronson is another must-go. And this is a tough one because this loan out to Union Berlin has not worked out at all. I was cautiously optimistic that it might. I was a little concerned about the style of play with Union Berlin being very direct, but it really hasn't worked out. Part of that is that Brenden Aaronson himself is just not that good. He's just a runner, and he's got some decent technique, but he's not really explosive in the way that you want him to be. He's got issues with his balance. He can't take on players at a good level, at least. We're talking about the Premier League and the Bundesliga. And anybody saying, look, Aronson's young, he's 23 years old. We saw him for a whole year in the Premier League. He had some good moments under Jesse Marsch, albeit not that many. And then, the whole second half of the season is awful. In fact, all of 2023, Brenden Aaronson doesn't have a single club goal or assist. So that's really something to keep in mind. He dropped down a level going to the Bundesliga, but it's looking like the Bundesliga is also too much for him. So these are the options. A possible Leeds United return. Leeds are pushing for a top 2 spot. I think they're in 5th as of the recording of this video. And, would he start for Leeds? Not necessarily right away. Maybe he could be a, rotational starter. I actually think that going to Leeds under Daniel Farke would help him because Daniel Farke plays a lot more of a possession style game, and that would force him to learn to keep the ball and not just rely on being a run all day, run all night sort of player. I think, Brenden Aaronson has to learn to play a different way, and that's not easy to do at his age. But it's not like he has zero tools. There are some tools there. And if he can learn to be more of a possession attacking midfielder and try to learn to use the technical ability that he does have in the championship, I think that's possible. Ajax is kind of an interesting one because they are in trouble as well. They're 6th, I think, 5th or 6th now in the Eredivisie. They've been using the striker, Chuba Akpom, the English striker, as a 10 for most of the season because they don't really have a 10. Now, the Eredivisie is a league where if you're not good enough for the top 5 leagues, you can still be successful in the Eredivisie. And Ajax definitely need the help. So that could be quite interesting for him to go on loan from Leeds to Ajax for 6 months. Because he can't get... Look, Leeds paid $30 million for him a year and a half ago. He's not going... No, if they sell him, what are they going to get for him now? 3 to 5 mil, maybe? That's really the truth. So he needs to kind of re-up his value, and Ajax is a place to play good attacking possession soccer. They're a bit in a sort of doldrum right now, but they are still pushing to get back to a top 2 spot. They're not going to win the league, but they got to get back to relevance again this season, and maybe, Brenden Aaronson could help them. PSV Eindhoven could be interesting, but only if Bakayoko leaves. There's a lot of rumors about Bakayoko. Manchester United might be interested. Spurs might be interested. Inter Milan was interested, but then they got Tajon Buchanan. So Bakayoko leaving, if that happens this January, then I could see him going to PSV. I don't even think he would start necessarily at PSV right away as a winger because they still do have Chucky Lozano there as well. And, quite a few others. Saibari is there. I don't think he would start, but I think as a depth piece, because, PSV have the Champions League too. And the way Dortmund are playing, there's a chance they could make it to the quarterfinals of a Champions League. And, again, PSV attacking possession soccer, that is something that Brenden needs to learn how to play. So maybe a loan to PSV if Bakayoko goes could be an interesting move. Zack Steffen, our other goalkeeper, who is really in the doldrums right now, had a terrible time at Middlesbrough. It just hasn't worked out for Zack. Having a lot of injuries, a lot of specifically trunk injuries to his back, has not served him either. His confidence is completely shot. He's currently the third choice keeper at Manchester City. But again, he's the same age as Ethan Horvath, right? Like, he's 28. So it's kind of time to go, you know? It's time to probably come back to MLS. He's spent 4.5 seasons abroad now, right? He had the first year at Manchester City where he was in Germany and he got injured. Then he had 2 years at the backup at Manchester City. Then the year at Middlesbrough where he did not play well. And then he's got, the last 6 months of really doing nothing. I don't know how healthy he is, but it seems like he is fine now. And if he is, where could he go? Well, NYCFC needs a new keeper. Luis, I think Barraza is his name, was the starting keeper. And he was extremely, extremely error-prone and inconsistent. So they brought in Matt Freese. Matt Freese, toward the second half of the season, got the starting job. And from a shot-stopping perspective, Matt Freese did fine. The problem is that Matt Freese isn't great with his feet. And the way NYCFC want to play requires a goalkeeper who is good with his feet, which Steffen is, certainly for an MLS level. And that's obviously a loan from his, Manchester City is the parent club. So that would be a simple loan until maybe his contract expires and then he could just sign with MLS permanently or something along those lines. Either way, that is the obvious choice. Sporting KC is an interesting one because, Tim Melia can't stay healthy. He's also 38. John Poolskamp, I don't really rate him as Melia's replacement over in KC. So could be an interesting one, maybe, if they're looking for a new goalkeeper. Another one could be Austin. Look, Brad Stuver was never a good number one goalkeeper in MLS. There's a reason he was the backup to Sir Sean Johnson at NYCFC for so long. Sean Johnson isn't even a good keeper, right? It's Brad Stuver. Austin fans will tell you this year, he has not been good. He hasn't always been error prone, but he's just not the caliber of goalkeeper that if you're challenging to be a really good team in MLS, which I believe Austin wants to be, I don't think they can, Brad Stuver can be that guy. So that could be another interesting destination for Steffen. At this point, I think Steffen needs to come back to MLS, stay healthy, recover his form, recover his confidence. And look, 28, it's also not, you're not done. In fact, 28 is kind of just entering your prime for a keeper. So if Steffen, does well for 2 years, 2 seasons in MLS and can stay healthy and get back into the national team, there's no reason he couldn't still get a transfer at age 30. You got 5-6 good years left as a goalkeeper at age 30. So you never know, right? It's more about a reset for both him and Ethan Horvath. And I think MLS can be that reset. And even if you don't end up going back to Europe, fine, come back to MLS and have a career playing soccer like James Sands did and like Chris Mueller did. And, like many others who couldn't quite make it in Europe did and do. Now we are in the should go category. And first one is obviously Miles Robinson. It's not so much about should he go, it's he's going because he refused to sign a new contract with Atlanta. It's about where for him right now. Obviously, the big rumors for some time have been PSV Eindhoven. The problem is, I don't know if he gets minutes with Boscagli and Ramalho there. I don't think he starts over either Boscagli or Ramalho. So if he goes to PSV, which I think he still should, to try to learn and improve and grow as a defender, because if he wants to be involved with that 2026 World Cup, I think he needs to really push himself. This guy is a speed merchant who's good in the air, okay? But he's terrible with his 1v1 defending. His positioning is poor, what you just don't often see it. In fact, Atlanta fans will tell you this last year, he wasn't even really that good for Atlanta, right? Coming back from that, Achilles injury has been tough for him, right? He's just not that good of a player. And at 27 years old, this is his prime. So can he get better? Yes. The other big problem the other thing that he's not good at is with his feet. And the good thing about PSV is if he does get to play, which I don't know if he will, they're going to have 80% of the ball in most games. So you will get a lot of reps with the ball. If he doesn't want to go to PSV, if he wants to take, TAM money or DP money to stay in MLS, I guess LAFC would probably make the most sense because, A, they can't start Aaron Long. They're idiots if they do. And B, what's his name just retired? Chiellini. So they definitely need another center back. And I think the way that, that LAFC plays could be beneficial to him somewhat in terms of him, learning to be better on the ball, right? So I think LAFC could be an interesting move if he decides to stay in MLS. I know Cincinnati was an option. He would be an upgrade on Matt Miazga. We'll see if that one ends up happening. I think if he chooses to stay in MLS, he's signaling that he wants to, make his money and which I guess is fine. Like, from a human perspective, if you want to go for the money that pays the most or the job that pays the most money and where you're the most comfortable, fine. But from a national team perspective, if you choose to become an MLS lifer, which he would do by signing a contract with any MLS team, then you shouldn't be involved with our national team. That's just the truth, guys. MLS is fine as a development league, and it's fine as a retirement league. But the in-between, the prime of your career, if you want to be involved with the national team, you got to get out. You got to get out and go play somewhere where they take the game seriously, because they just don't here in the U.S. Celtic could be an option if Cameron Carter-Vickers leaves, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. Again, Celtic is a team that they wouldn't have to spend any money. He's a free agent. If Cameron Carter-Vickers leaves in January, then I could see that being an easy fix, right? They bring in Miles. There's no transfer fee. And it would be good for Miles because even though he wouldn't be defending too much, he would still be quite good on the ball. Or, I'm sorry, he would have a lot of time on the ball. He would have a lot of reps on the ball, right? And he would have to advance the ball on the ground in possession, which is the way that Celtic play. And yes, the quality of opposition isn't that great. But in terms of it being a good jump for him and a good learning environment for him, and also the reality of like pressure, right? Certainly if he, Celtic are probably going to win the league handily. Then in the summer, you've got Champions League qualifiers in Champions League, and you've got to, play 6 to 8 games in the Champions League, maybe the possibility of Europa League after that if Celtic can ever get third. So that could be an interesting option, but only if Cameron Carter-Vickers leaves. Speaking of Cameron Carter-Vickers, as a center back, he's been now at Celtic for 2.5 years, and I think it's time for him to go. He's stagnating there a bit. He's not being challenged enough. And I think there are some options. I would prefer him to go to a league like Germany or even Italy before the Premier League, okay? The problem is that Celtic paid $10 million for him a year and a half ago because he was there on loan for a year. So they would probably want to get 15 to 20 for him at least. And I don't know if an Italian or German team are going to pay that right now. So I guess the Premier League would probably be the best option. And these are some possibilities. 1, Nottingham Forest, terrible defense all season long. Awful defending. I think he would start in that team and actually be an upgrade on several of those defenders. Bournemouth would only be interesting if they sell Lloyd Kelly. Spurs are very interested in Lloyd Kelly. Several teams are very interested in Lloyd Kelly. They're also interested in Dominic Solanke. Bournemouth are saying they're not going to sell, but we all know that that's not how it works. Reality is, if you come with enough money, most teams will sell. So if they lose Lloyd Kelly, I could see them reinvesting some of that money into Cameron Carter-Vickers. Fulham is the same situation. Only if Tosin Adarabioyo leaves, then I think he could end up at Fulham. And also, they probably are going to need to replace Tim Ream at some point. So it'd be more of a long-term move for Cameron Carter-Vickers if they lose Tosin, because Tosin's also being monitored by the big teams. So it really depends on what happens. But at the very latest this summer, he's got to get out. That'll be 3 years at Celtic. They don't have Europa League. They don't have Champions League now. Like, what are you doing? Are you just going to stay at Celtic your whole life and stagnate? Is that the level? Or are you going to at least try and push to go play at a better level? That is the question for Cameron Carter-Vickers. I think he should go this January. I don't know if it's going to happen. We'll have to wait and see. Caleb Wiley is a should go for me, and there are some people who say it's too early, and I disagree. He is bad. He has had 2 full seasons now in MLS, started at 16. He is still just 18 years old. I have not been extremely thrilled with his progress this season in MLS. It felt like things were getting better for him until Andrew Gutman left. when Atlanta sold or traded Andrew Gutman, it felt like there wasn't really a lot of competition for Caleb Wiley, and he started to stagnate. Not that there was too much competition anyways before, because they were playing this 3-4-3 with him as the wingback. But I do think that he needs to get out of Atlanta in order to really progress and be the player that he is. I'm just worried that he's stagnating, too young. He's still a little too reliant on his physical gifts. I would like to see more progress from him, and I don't know that Atlanta is the place to do it. I think that going to Europe, and these are several options. One could be RC Strasbourg in France. There are already some rumors about them. The thing about them is they have left backs some left backs who aren't very good. Certainly their backup left backs are not very good. So that could be an interesting one. Red Bull Salzburg could be very interesting because their left back, who is also their captain, Andreas Ulmer, is 38. So even if he goes to Red Bull Salzburg and is the backup to Ulmer for the rest of the season, there's a good chance he could go be their number one next season, right? Now, truth is, look, it's also Red Bull Salzburg. They do a great job with developing players. The French League also, by the way, let's talk a little bit about the French League because most of the French international players were developed in the French League. The French League is very good at taking very physically gifted players and giving them the technical tools that they need to be successful at a high level. And that's what the French League is very, very good for. And I think that kind of fits Caleb Wiley's profile. The other one, and hear me out, PSV Eindhoven, and no, I'm not just saying it because of the American contingent. Hear me out. Both of the guys who play left back for PSV, Serginho Dest and Patrick Van Aanholt, are both on loan. Okay? Dest is on loan from Barca. Van Aanholt is on loan from, I think it's Galatasaray. Yeah, Galatasaray. Here's the thing. Dest does not want to stay in PSV. From what I have been told, Dest, this move to PSV was a restart, sort of a kickstart again for his career, to sort of refigure things, but he doesn't want to stay in PSV. He wants to go back to a top 5 league after the season. So even if, Ernie Stewart or PSV wants to keep him, I doubt that's going to happen. I don't think Dest wants to stay. So if Dest is gone by the next summer, and we don't know what's going to happen with Van Aanholt, even if he stays, he's already 34, right? So Wiley could come in, be the backup, right? Or, just train with them for the next few months until the end of the season. And then in the summer, Dest leaves and maybe, Van Aanholt starts with him as the backup, or they interchange. For him to develop, they have a good coach. Peter Bosch is good with young players there. They have a very distinct style of play. Obviously, there's the American connection there with, Pepe and Tillman, if Tillman stays, and Ernie Stewart. I would like PSV, or you know what? They buy him now in January. They leave him loan him back to Atlanta for 6 months. And then in August, after the Olympics, then they call him back. And, he starts next season with them, and he'll be 19 at that point too. The other should go is Brian Gutierrez. I don't trust the Chicago Fire. That is a dumpster fire of an organization. They renewed the contracts of George Heitz and the sporting director. I don't remember his name now. After they did not make the playoffs once in 4 years, in the 4 years that they were there. It looks like Frank Klopas is going to be the coach again. Okay, so what is this? MLS like 1997. Frank fucking Klopas is in charge. Absurd. And as a whole, and to top it all off, not only are they a dumpster fire, they didn't let him go to the Under-20 World Cup, okay, because he had to have such valuable experience not making the playoffs yet again in a dumpster fire of an organization that should have been relegated if we were a serious soccer country a long time ago. Now, Gutierrez did just sign a new contract with Chicago Fire, which points to the fact that he may not leave. However, no. Remember when before Reggie Cannon left Dallas? He signed a new contract with a clause that he could leave for a certain amount of money. It was a way of making sure the club was taken care of if he did leave. Maybe that's what's in his contract as well. I don't believe in their ability to continue to help Brian Gutierrez reach his full potential. He's a very talented attacking midfielder. He's not going to play attacking midfielder. He's going to play on the wing because, of course, they have what's his name there? How do I always forget this guy's name? Xherdan Shaqiri. Oh my God. How do I keep forgetting his name? He's going to be playing in midfield there, even though he probably shouldn't be. And I just don't think it's a good environment for Guti to develop in. For the goalkeepers, it's one thing, but for an attacking, creative midfielder like him, I'm sorry. I just think he needs to be surrounded by better coaches, better players in a better environment that can actually help him to grow and develop. And I think it's time for him to go. It's been 2 years now in MLS, and I'm not happy. I'm not happy with how, the fire at all, and I don't think he deserves to be there. They might not even let him go to the Olympics because they're going to be 12th in the conference and being like, we still are mathematically able to make the playoffs, so we need all of our players here. So they're denying him opportunities to play for his country in important tournaments that could be hugely beneficial for his career. And pisses me off. Such an incompetent fucking organization. Sorry for swearing, but come on. All right. These guys are the would-be nice-to-goes for different reasons, okay? Brandon Vazquez and Jesus Ferreira are not USMNT material, okay? I don't believe the Brandon Vazquez to Brentford rumors. I just don't. I'm sorry. This guy has had one good career. He's 25 years old, and he's had one good year his entire career, and that was in MLS. So obviously that comes with a major asterisk, and we all know Jesus Ferreira's level, right? Could they go to Belgium? Sure. Belgium or Turkey or maybe even an Eredivisie club, particularly for Jesus. But to me, it's more a matter of they would have to take a pay cut. The clubs that they can play at can't afford them. So it would have to be a situation where they just take a pay cut and they push their club to let them go. I don't know exactly how it would work, or maybe a bigger club buys them and loans them out. Either way, I would be very surprised if either of them leave. I think it would be nice if they found a good spot where they can push themselves a little, but I wouldn't hate it if they stayed because it's not super relevant to the U.S. men's national team conversation. Now, Diego Luna and Jack McGlynn are different stories. Both still have a ton of potential. Diego Luna really started to break through towards the end of the last MLS season. I just don't love how Real Salt Lake use him. They use him as a left winger because, it's America and we love to shove creative players out wide because they don't run hard enough to really go get them. And that's kind of the situation with Diego Luna. But even from the wing towards the end of last season, he managed to be quite effective for them. So I wouldn't, if he's one more year or another 6 months, maybe in the transfer window in January after the Olympics, he could move. If he found the right development spot right now, probably in the Eredivisie or maybe Portugal, then I wouldn't mind him going. But I also think he could benefit from another 6 months in MLS. Jack McGlynn is the same. Last year, he wasn't a locked-in starter. He was an intermittent starter or rotational starter. Sometimes he would start. Sometimes he would be on the bench. I think, for Jack, at some point, he does need to leave. Maybe this should be his last season. I think he needs to learn to play in an environment that is fast, number one, and where he doesn't have space on the ball, because that's his big weakness. When he doesn't have time and space, he can pick out amazing passes when he's got space to do so. But when the game is frenetic and he doesn't have that kind of space, he really struggles. So I just think he's got a ways to go. And I think one more year in Philly wouldn't hurt him. And then after that, but again, if he finds the right environment that can improve him and maybe help him to get some of those tools that he badly needs, then fine. All right, so that's my list of the must-goes, the should-goes, and the would-be-nice-to-goes. Let me know in the comments who you would want to leave, where you would want to go. If you have good destination options for some of these guys or rumors that you have heard, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great one. Happy New Year. I'll see you soon.